Welcome back to part 3 of LA Fishguys, episode 109, breaking down a 14-year-old living coral reef tank. We scored on a 400-gallon Bowfront Aquarium sale, as well as the setup and the service of the tank, but it involves breaking down this 300-gallon living reef tank. It also includes about an 80-gallon tank upstairs in the homeowner's bathroom. But we're in the process of breaking down the reef tank. We methodically planned it out. We started by extracting some undisturbed clean water from the system so that we could pull the living corals out of the tank first. Once all the corals and invertebrates were out of the tank, we then began to remove the living rock. Because this tank has been running for so long, calcareous algae and various sponges basically glued the reef together, and we had to pull out the pieces. Some of them we had to break out. We've got to the point where we have all the living corals and live rock out of the system. We've drained most of the water and collected most of the fish. We're now in the process of trying to collect some of the remaining stragglers, such as the diamondback goby and the algae blenny. And now, with all the living creatures removed from the aquarium, the only thing that remains is a 1-inch layer of sand and sludge. It's now time to get out one of the 3 favorite gifts that I received way back when I started aquarium service. The owner of the store I worked in back in the mid-90s gave me these 3 items. One was my aquarium cleaning magnets, which I've used quite often for many years since. Another was a pair of tongs that allowed me to reach into an aquarium and extract items off the bottom. The third, believe it or not, was a simple scoop. It was originally used for collecting bird seed and pelleted foods, but I used it now for scooping up the debris or the sand or the gravel at the bottom of the aquariums. And so, with the buckets of fish and coral stowed off to the side, alternately aerated, we need to go ahead and get that final layer of sand out of the bottom of the tank. So at this point, there's 2 ways of getting that sand out of the bottom of the tank. One would be to continue to scoop it as I'm currently doing so. The alternative would be to fill the tank back up with water and once again try to create a siphon and suck the gravel or the sand out of the bottom of the tank. I fear in this particular situation, if I had difficulty maintaining a siphon earlier with the lower water level, I'd probably run into greater problems with even a lower water level as it is currently. So we'll continue to use the scoop and try to scoop all that sand out of the bottom of the tank. So it's interesting to note the perspective at this particular point. And what I mean by that is, in the process of scooping out all of the sand and sediment at the bottom of the tank, the key word there was sediment. It's the waste that you get the big eyeball into, meaning this is the opportune time to see where all that debris collects. And it collects mostly down in the sand at the bottom of the tank. This is the sink. The nutrient sink, the area that nitrates and phosphates are locked up down inside the gravel, continually being broke down by bacterias, releasing it back into the system and creating that fertile environment that allows that favorite green algae called hair algae to flourish. Unless you are using or promoting some active means of removing nitrate and phosphate from your system, this is ultimately where it's going to collect. This is where the biological process ends. This is where the debris is at. Regardless of how much you vacuum the gravel or how big or frequent you do water changes, you will not be able to keep up with the production of waste within the system. Only through some means of denitrification or absorption will you be able to keep up with nutrient production. Simple water changes and vacuuming the gravel is not enough. If you do nothing to keep nutrient levels low, eventually you will end up with algae problems.
Hi there, my name's Jim Stime and you know me as the LA Fish Guy. Well, I also wear a couple of other hats. One of them is the jellyfish tank called the Jelly Aquarium, and the third is myfishtank.com. I offer an entire line of acrylic aquariums ranging from rectangular to hexagon, flatback hex, as well as the custom curve front aquariums. There's also an entire line of stands and canopies ranging from MDF to pine to oak with a variety of different finishes available. And the website is even smart enough that you can calculate what the freight and crate charges to your location will be. That's myfishtank.com. Oh, the inside of the tank is completely empty. Maybe we could rinse it out a little bit so it doesn't stink, and then we'll start loading up the stuff in the van and then come back and tear out the tank. It should be an interesting challenge. So we're now going to take and rinse the inside of the tank out. We'll stick the garden hose in there and just turn the faucet on, get a little bit of water, and then we'll use our sump pump to pump it out. Kind of sad though, we spent all this time trying to create an ecosystem inside there with all the various bits of life, and here I'm going to take and rinse it out with fresh water. But that's part of the game. The game being tearing down the tank and building a new, bigger, better one.
And so with the game plan almost completed, we'll go ahead and fill the tank up a few inches of fresh water so that we can plug in our faithful sump pump and pump that dirty water back out, as it'll probably be at least 2, possibly 3 weeks before I'm able to get back here to completely disassemble and remove the aquarium out of the house. We don't want it being smelly during that particular time. To aid the sump pump on pumping out as much of that sediment as possible, we'll go in and use the garden hose to try to flush or stir up the remaining amount of sediment at the bottom of the tank. With that sediment suspended in the water, this will improve the odds that the sump pump will be able to pump most of that out itself.
So while the tank is rinsing out, we'll go ahead and scoop all this sand out of the bucket into some styro so we can carry it out to the van.
And here's some sad irony. What you spend good money for to buy the bagged version to pour into your tank that I just scooped out of this tank, I'll probably end up taking these styrofoam containers home, placing them in the driveway, and along with the live rock, probably just end up allowing it to dry out, as I have no need or further application or means of storing this at this time. Once I get all the sand scooped out of the container into the styrofoam boxes, I can then take those boxes along with the boxes that the live rock is in and begin to stack them in the van. There's even a logic as far as what and how it gets loaded into the van, starting with those square boxes that'll all stack uniformly or securely. We can then begin to stack the loose or odd items around those boxes.
And we've got everybody sitting here waiting to be loaded up in the van. These will be the last ones in. The rock and the sand I've already carried downstairs. I'm just going to load that into the van first. And then we'll start putting the corals and fish in.
After a healthy workout of carrying those boxes and buckets up and down the stairs and loading them all into the van, I have to admit, I think I've wore myself out. But I've also got to the point where I've come to the completion of the project, at least this point in the project.
So that's the breakdown of the 300-gallon reef tank. Step one in the process of getting ready to build the 400-gallon bowfront aquarium. We've drained it, we've removed everything from it, we've got it loaded up in the van. We'll take it home, sort it out. Some of it will come back, some of it won't. Hopefully you'll come back though for the next part.